August 12, 1944. Just after 4:30 in the morning, near the village of Mortain, Normandy. The rain has stopped, but everything is still wet. Mud clings to boots, to wheels, to the hems of greatcoats. Low fog slides through the hedgerows, swallowing the narrow Norman lanes and turning every field into a grey wall. Somewhere to the west, artillery thumps at irregular intervals. Not close. Not far. Just close enough to keep every man awake. Inside a commandeered stone farmhouse, General Lieutenant Friedrich von Broich stands bent over a folding map table. A single lantern hangs from a beam, its flame flickering each time a distant shell lands. The map beneath his hands is already smudged with dirt and pencil marks. Unit symbols have been crossed out, rewritten, pushed back, then pushed forward again. Nothing stays where it's ordered. Outside, engines cough and stall. A staff car tries to start, fails, then finally catches with a grinding whine. Voices hiss in low tones. No one shouts anymore. Shouting draws aircraft. Von Broich straightens slowly, rubbing stiffness from his lower back. He has not slept. None of them have. The counterattack was supposed to begin hours ago. It was supposed to be decisive. Instead, reports arrive late, incomplete, sometimes not at all. A signal officer steps in, helmet tucked under his arm, rain still dripping from the rim. "General," he says quietly, "the 2nd Battalion hasn't moved. They report no fuel." Von Broich closes his eyes for a moment. Fuel again. "How much do they have?" he asks. The officer hesitates. "Enough for, perhaps, 1 kilometer. 1 kilometer. Von Broich nods once, as if that is useful information. Somewhere on the map, an arrow marking an armored thrust suddenly feels like a bad joke. Outside, a burst of machine gun fire snaps sharp and close. Men freeze. The sound fades. Silence rushes back in, heavier than before. A runner arrives minutes later, breathless, his boots caked so thick with mud they barely bend. He salutes, hand shaking. "Enemy patrol captured near Hill 314, he says. "Americans. They abandoned supplies." Von Broich looks up. "Supplies?" "Yes, Herr General. A truck. Hit by artillery, I think. The escort fled." The word supplies hangs in the air longer than it should. Von Broich exchanges a glance with his chief of staff, Oberstleutnant Keller. Keller's face is drawn, eyes sunken, jaw unshaven. "Where?" Von Broich asks. 2 kilometers north. In a sunken lane." Von Broich does not hesitate. "Take me there." Keller frowns. "Sir, the area is still under observation." "I know," Von Broich says, already reaching for his cap. "I want to see it myself." They move out on foot, accompanied by 2 guards. The fog thickens as they leave the farmhouse behind. The lane is narrow, bordered by hedgerows so tall they feel like walls. Every few steps, Von Broich hears the soft metallic clink of empty canteens, the scrape of equipment shifting on tired shoulders. You smell it before you see it. Burned rubber. Oil. Something sweet and sour mixed together. The truck lies half on its side, canvas torn open, its front end smashed by shrapnel. One tire is gone completely. Crates are scattered across the lane, some broken, their contents spilled into the mud. Von Broich stops a few meters away. He listens. No voices. No engines. Just the distant rumble of guns and the drip of water from leaves overhead. A soldier kneels and pries open one of the intact boxes. The lid comes away with a crack. Inside are neatly packed tins, wrapped and labeled. The soldier lifts one out, turning it over in his hands, confused. "Chocolate," he murmurs. "Chocolate." Another crate is opened. Then another. Cigarettes spill out, still dry, bundled tight. Small cans of coffee. Sugar. Individual packets, sealed against moisture. Even soap. Von Broich steps closer, boots sinking into the mud. He reaches down and picks up a ration tin. It is warm from the morning air, solid, clean. He wipes it with his sleeve and reads the English lettering, slowly. Meal. Ready to eat. He turns it over again, as if expecting it to change. Around him, the soldiers have gone quiet. No one smiles. No one laughs. One man pulls out a cigarette, stares at it, then puts it back as if it might be taken away. Von Broich straightens, the tin still in his hand. Somewhere behind them, a shell whistles, lands far off, and the ground trembles faintly. For the first time that morning, the general feels something colder than exhaustion settle into his chest. The fog begins to thin as the morning drags on. Not enough to clear the fields, just enough to reveal movement. Shapes. Shadows. Somewhere beyond the hedgerows, American artillery adjusts its aim. Von Broich hands the ration tin back to the soldier without a word. Keller crouches beside another crate, prying it open with his bayonet. Inside are packets labeled with dates, contents, even nutritional values. Keller exhales sharply through his nose. They feed them well, he mutters. They feed them at all, Von Broich replies. A distant engine roars. Everyone stiffens. The sound grows louder then fades. Probably American armor repositioning. Or aircraft overhead, hidden by cloud. It is impossible to tell anymore. The battlefield has become a series of noises without faces. A Feldwebel jogs up from the bend in the lane. Herr General, he says. Enemy infantry probing from the west. They pulled back after contact, but they're testing us. Von Broich nods. How long? Since dawn. Small groups. Mortars. Mortars. Always mortars. He glances back at the truck, at the crates lying open in the mud like exposed organs. The contrast is brutal. His own men have been issued bread so hard it must be soaked to chew, sausage rationed to thin slices, coffee replaced with a bitter substitute. Fuel allocations are calculated in hours, then minutes. Keller stands wiping his blade. We should destroy the supplies, sir. Von Broich hesitates. Doctrine says yes. But he looks at the men watching him. Thin faces. Hollow eyes. Mud-streaked hands gripping rifles that haven't been properly cleaned in days. No, he says quietly. Distribute what we can. Quickly. The order spreads in murmurs. Crates are dragged deeper into cover. Cigarettes change hands. Chocolate is broken into uneven pieces. A corporal hands out coffee packets like contraband. No one celebrates. They eat standing, listening, glancing skyward between bites. You can feel the pressure building. The air itself seems to tighten as the morning advances. American artillery begins to walk closer, shells cracking into the fields beyond the hedges, then closer still. Each impact sends a shudder through the ground, knocking loose dirt from the lane walls. At 7:15, a runner arrives from regimental headquarters, soaked in sweat despite the cool air. Orders from Corps, he pants. Hold current positions. No withdrawal authorized. Von Broich closes his eyes briefly. Hold. Always hold. With what? He folds the message and tucks it into his coat. Any word on fuel resupply? The runner shakes his head. Convoy never arrived. Air attack near Vire. Of course. The general walks a few steps away, staring down the lane. The fog has lifted enough now to show the scarred earth, the crushed hedges, the shell holes filled with brown water. Somewhere out there, American infantry are moving methodically, backed by tanks that never seem to run dry. Keller joins him. Sir, he says carefully, if they break through here. They will, Von Broich says, not unkindly. Keller swallows. Then we should consider pulling the battalions back while we still can. Von Broich looks at him. Keller has been with him since Russia. He knows the look in his eyes. The moment when orders and reality part ways. We'll wait, Von Broich says. One more report. Minutes stretch. Artillery hammers again, closer now. A hedgerow to the east erupts, leaves and dirt spraying outward. A scream follows, cut short. Medics move, crouch low, dragging a wounded man back by his shoulders. At 8:40, the radio crackles. Static, then a voice, thin and strained. Enemy armor sighted. Shermans. Multiple. Advancing along the road. Von Broich grips the receiver. Which road? All of them. The voice replies, then dissolves into noise. The general hands the radio back slowly. He feels the weight of the morning settle fully now. This is no probe. This is pressure, applied steadily, confidently, by an enemy that can afford to keep pushing. He glances once more at the American ration crates, now half empty. Clean packaging. Redundancy. Excess. Each item a quiet statement of capacity. Keller watches him closely. Sir? Von Broich exhales. Prepare fallback lines. Quietly. If Corps asks, we are holding. Another shell lands nearby, so close this time that the lane wall collapses inward, showering them with dirt. Men dive for cover. The sound rolls through your chest like a physical blow. As the dust settles, Von Broich realizes something with sudden clarity. This fight is not being lost here, in this lane, on this morning. It was lost months ago, in factories and ports and rail yards far from Normandy. And now the Americans have arrived to collect the result. By mid-morning the fog is gone completely. The sky above Normandy has turned into a dull, washed-out blue, the kind that invites aircraft. Every man knows it. Helmets tilt upward without conscious thought. Conversations stop mid-sentence when an engine note changes somewhere far off. Von Broich stands at a crossroads marked by a bent signpost and a burned-out motorcycle. He studies the map again, though it no longer tells him anything he doesn't already know. The lines are too clean. The symbols too orderly. Reality has leaked past all of them. A messenger from the artillery battalion arrives, face gray with dust. We have 12 rounds per gun remaining, the man says. No resupply. The last horse teams were strafed. 12 rounds. Von Broich nods once. Hold them. Fire only on confirmed armor. The messenger hesitates. Sir, if the tanks break through. They won't need artillery by then, Von Broich says quietly. The man salutes and disappears back down the lane, hunched low, as if the sky itself might reach down and grab him. Keller approaches with another officer, Major Reinecke, commander of the infantry regiment holding the western edge. Reinecke's uniform is torn at the sleeve, dried blood crusted along his cuff. My left flank is folding, Reinecke says without preamble. American infantry supported by tanks. They're using smoke, advancing by bounds. We can slow them, but not stop them. Von Broich listens, hands clasped behind his back. Somewhere nearby, a Panzerfaust is fired. The sharp crack echoes, followed by a hollow boom. No cheer follows. That tells him enough. Can you disengage? Von Broich asks. Reinecke shakes his head. Not cleanly. They're pressing too close. Von Broich turns to Keller. The decision has been forming since dawn, tightening with every report, every empty fuel can, every shell landing closer than the last. We pull back in stages, he says. Company by company. No mass movement. Keller's jaw tightens. Corps orders are based on a map that no longer exists. Von Broich cuts in. He lowers his voice. If we stay, we lose the division. If we move now, we might save part of it. There is a pause. Artillery booms again, further east now. The Americans are adjusting, pushing, sensing weakness the way experienced fighters always do. Keller nods once. I'll pass the word. Quietly. Von Broich repeats. No radios unless necessary. Use runners. As Keller turns away, Von Broich looks back down the road where the American truck still lies, its cab blackened, its cargo now mostly gone. A few ration tins remain in the mud, crushed under boots. Even discarded, they look intact. He remembers Russia. The winter of '42. Frozen bread, men collapsing on the march, engines that would not turn over no matter how long they were coaxed. Back then, he told himself it was temporary. That Germany would adapt. That production would catch up. Now, watching Sherman's advance with methodical patience, hearing reports of American units rotating fresh companies into the line, he understands how wrong that assumption was. At 11:20, the first withdrawal begins. A platoon slips back through the hedgerows, moving one man at a time. Covering fire rattles briefly, then stops. The Americans respond with mortar rounds, walking them forward, precise and unhurried. You feel the waiting more than the movement. Long minutes crouched in ditches, counting breaths, listening for the clank of tracks. Orders arrive late, or not at all. A runner trips and does not get back up. No one stops to help. There is no time. Von Broich moves constantly, from position to position, offering short orders, brief words. Hold 5 minutes. Then go. Leave nothing useful behind. At one point, he comes across a young soldier sitting against a hedge, staring at a chocolate bar in his hands. Eat it, Von Broich says. The soldier looks up, startled. Herr General? Eat it now, Von Broich repeats. You may need the strength. The boy nods and obeys, chewing quickly, eyes flicking back to the road. Von Broich moves on. By early afternoon, the sound of American armor is unmistakable. Tracks grind against stone. Engines idle confidently, without strain. Tank commanders stand half-exposed in their hatches, scanning with binoculars, directing infantry with easy gestures. German anti-tank teams fire, then relocate, then fire again. One Sherman burns. 2 more roll past it without slowing. At 14:05, a radio message finally comes through from Corps. Hold at all costs. Reinforcements en route. Von Broich listens, then hands the receiver back without replying. Reinforcements. He looks at his watch. Looks at the road. At the empty fuel cans. At the men withdrawing in ones and twos, exhausted but still moving. No, he says to no one in particular. Not today. The decision is made now, fully and irrevocably. The tactical shift is no longer about ground. It is about survival. About pulling something intact out of a collapsing front. As the afternoon sun dips lower, casting long shadows across the hedgerows, Von Broich feels the weight lift slightly. Not relief. Clarity. The Americans have more than men and machines. They have time. And time, he knows now, is the one resource Germany no longer possesses. The first real mistake comes quietly. It happens not with an explosion, but with silence. Just after 1600 hours, Von Broich is moving along a shallow drainage ditch when the sound of American artillery abruptly stops. No whistling. No impact. No distant rumble adjusting fire. The battlefield, which has been grinding without pause since dawn, suddenly exhales. Every experienced soldier knows this moment. Silence like this is not mercy. It is preparation. Tell the battalions to halt movement, Von Broich orders. Get eyes forward. Runners vanish into the hedgerows. Men freeze where they are, pressed into mud and leaves. Somewhere ahead, an engine revs once, then cuts. 5 minutes pass. Then 10. The stillness stretches nerves thin. You hear small things now. Water dripping from a canteen. A boot scraping stone. A man coughing and forcing himself to stop. At 16:17, the mistake reveals itself. A German platoon on the southern edge misreads the quiet. Believing the Americans have paused to reorganize, their lieutenant orders a hurried repositioning across open ground to reach a sunken road that looks safer on the map than where they are. The moment the first squad breaks cover, the sky erupts. American artillery slams down with surgical precision. Smoke rounds bloom first, blinding and disorienting. High explosive follows immediately after. The open field becomes a killing space in seconds. Von Broich feels the concussion through the earth beneath his boots. He turns just in time to see dirt and bodies thrown upward together, indistinguishable in the haze. Stop them! Keller shouts into a runner's face. Stop the movement! But the damage is already done. The Americans have what they want now. Targets. Momentum. Shermans surge forward, engines roaring, infantry advancing tight behind them. Machine guns chatter in controlled bursts, cutting hedgerow gaps wider, forcing German defenders to fall back or be crushed in place. Von Broich moves toward the impact area, crouched low, helmet pulled down tight. He finds the lieutenant moments later, slumped against a shattered tree trunk, blood soaking his trousers. The man tries to stand when he sees the general. "Stay," Von Broich orders, gripping his shoulder. "Medic!" The lieutenant's eyes dart wildly. "I thought, sir. I thought they'd stopped." Von Broich does not answer. There is nothing to say. The mistake cascades outward. Units that were withdrawing cleanly now have to rush, abandoning equipment, leaving wounded behind. Radios are dropped, maps lost. Orders turn into gestures and shouts swallowed by gunfire. American infantry exploit the gap instantly. They move with confidence that comes only from knowing the pressure will not let up behind them. When one squad pauses, another fills the space. When a tank stops, another rolls past it. By 1700 hours, the southern flank is no longer a line. It is a series of isolated pockets, each fighting its own small battle, each unaware of how close collapse truly is. Von Broich retreats to a shallow rise overlooking the lane where the ration truck still smolders. The air smells of cordite and crushed vegetation. Smoke drifts low, clinging to the ground. A staff sergeant crawls up beside him. "Sir," he says, voice hoarse, "we can't hold the crossroads." Von Broich looks through his binoculars. American infantry are already crossing it, moving past abandoned German positions, stepping over discarded bread bags and empty ammunition boxes. Among them, he sees something that stops him cold. An American soldier pauses, bends, and picks up one of the crushed ration tins left behind. He turns it in his hands, shrugs, and tosses it aside without a second thought. Von Broich lowers the binoculars slowly. That single, careless gesture hits harder than the artillery. To the Americans, these supplies are disposable, replaceable. There will be more tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. For his men, those tins were a brief luxury. A reminder of what they no longer have. The realization tightens around his chest as the sun dips lower, painting the smoke in dull orange light. The resistance is no longer slowing the enemy. It is merely marking time. At 1810, Keller returns, face streaked with grime. "We've lost contact with the Southern Regiment," he says. "No runners returned." Von Broich nods. He had already assumed as much. "Then we pull again," he says. "Before night traps us." Keller hesitates. "Sir? Corps will be angry," Von Broich finishes. "Let them." Another American shell lands close, showering them with dirt. Von Broich doesn't flinch. The unexpected resistance, the brief hope that careful movement might preserve the line, is gone now. The mistake has accelerated what was already inevitable. As darkness begins to gather at the edges of the fields, Von Broich understands that from this point forward, every decision will be made under collapse conditions. And collapse does not forgive hesitation. Night does not bring relief. It only narrows the world. By 2000 hours, the light has drained from the hedgerows, leaving behind a gray-blue dust that distorts distance and direction. Smoke lingers close to the ground, mixing with mist rising from churned fields. Every shadow looks like movement. Every sound feels closer than it is. Von Broich moves with a small knot of staff and runners, keeping to sunken lanes whenever possible. The withdrawal has become fragmented now. Some units pull back on time. Others don't receive the order at all. A few simply stop moving, exhausted beyond command. You hear men whispering to themselves as they walk. Counting steps. Muttering names. Praying without realizing it. An American flare rises suddenly, hissing as it arcs overhead. The lane freezes in pale white light. Helmets gleam. Faces turn upward in shock. "Down!" someone shouts. Machine gun fire erupts almost immediately. Tracers snap overhead, stitching the darkness. Men dive into ditches, into mud already thick with blood and water. Von Broich presses himself flat, feeling the vibration of rounds striking the bank above his head. The flare burns out. Darkness slams back in. No one moves for several seconds. Then, cautiously, breathing resumes. A runner crawls toward von Broich, eyes wide. Sir, the Americans are using loudspeakers. Von Broich frowns. What are they saying? The runner swallows. They're telling our men to surrender. In German. Von Broich closes his eyes briefly. He has heard this before, in Italy. It works more often than command wants to admit. They move again, slower now. The lane forks unexpectedly. A map appears, unfolded with trembling hands, the edges already torn and wet. Someone argues in a whisper about which turn leads east. Another voice insists it doesn't matter anymore. At 21:30 they stumble upon a group of infantry crouched behind an overturned cart. The men look up in alarm, weapons raised, until they recognize the general's insignia. Where is your company commander? Von Broich asks. One of the soldiers shakes his head. Killed this afternoon, Herr General. The radio too. Von Broich nods. Follow us. Stay low. They fall in without question. Orders don't matter as much as proximity now. Men cling to movement, to any sense of direction. The psychological strain shows itself in small ways. A soldier laughs suddenly at nothing, then clamps a hand over his mouth in horror. Another refuses to let go of an empty bread bag, clutching it like proof of something lost. Around 22:10, artillery resumes, lighter now but persistent. Harassing fire. Shells fall without pattern, forcing constant stops, constant dives for cover. Time stretches painfully. Every minute feels longer than the last. Von Broich checks his watch again and again, as if the passage of time might change if observed closely enough. They pause beneath a stand of trees. Keller crouches beside him, voice barely audible. Sir, he says, the men are finished. Von Broich looks at the shapes huddled around them. Mud-smeared faces. Empty stares. Rifles resting across knees that tremble with fatigue. I know, he says. A young private nearby pulls something from his pocket. An American cigarette. He lights it with shaking hands, shielding the flame. The smell drifts through the group. No one tells him to stop. The irony is sharp enough to taste. At 2300 hours, the sound of engines grows louder again. Not approaching. Passing. American armor moving along a parallel road, unconcerned with concealment. Their confidence presses down like weight. Von Broich feels the full strain now, not just of this day, but of years. Of decisions made far above him. Of promises about production and miracles and last-minute solutions that never arrived. He thinks again of the ration crate. Of coffee packed against moisture. Of vitamins measured and sealed. Of a system designed not just to fight, but to endure. Germany, he realizes, is fighting on credit. And the bill has come due. A shell explodes close enough to knock him sideways. He hits the ground hard, breath driven from his lungs. For a moment, all sound disappears, replaced by a high ringing. When it fades, he pushes himself up, spitting dirt. His hands are shaking now. He forces them still. Up, he says hoarsely. We move. Now. They rise and disappear back into the darkness, figures swallowed one by the collapsing front. Somewhere behind them, the Americans keep advancing, steady and methodical, supported by an industrial tide that does not slow for night, exhaustion, or fear. The night finally breaks just before 4:30. Not with light, but with sound. A deep, rolling thunder moves across the horizon from west to east, steady and continuous. It is not artillery. It is engines. Hundreds of them. Trucks, tanks, half-tracks, all moving in coordinated rhythm. Von Broich stops in the middle of the lane, raising a hand. The column behind him halts instinctively. Men listen, heads tilted, faces pale in the pre-dawn gloom. The sound does not fade. It grows. Keller steps up beside him. That's a full armored push, he says. They're exploiting the night. Von Broich nods slowly. The Americans are not waiting for daylight. They do not need it. Their logistics allow them to keep pressure on without pause, rotating units, fueling vehicles, feeding men while advancing. This is the turning point. Not a dramatic charge or a single decisive blow, but the realization that the enemy is accelerating while you are collapsing. A runner arrives from the rear, stumbling, eyes wide with panic. "Sir," he gasps, "American units have reached the crossroads east of us. They're cutting the road." Von Broich feels the last sliver of doubt evaporate. "That's it," he says quietly. He pulls Keller aside. "We're breaking into small groups. Platoon-sized. No more headquarters movement." Keller stiffens. "Sir, if we split, we survive," Von Broich finishes. "Or we don't. But this way we don't die together." The order is passed by touch and whisper. Men look at one another in confusion, then understanding. Friends clasp hands briefly, exchange nods, then melt away into different directions, choosing hedgerows and ditches like paths through a maze. Von Broich remains with a handful of staff and guards. He takes one last look at the map, then folds it carefully and slips it into his coat pocket. It is useless now, but he cannot bring himself to discard it. As the eastern sky begins to pale, American artillery opens up again. This time it is not probing. It is preparatory fire. Shells fall in lines, saturating ground methodically, hurting movement, denying routes. You feel it as much as hear it. A constant pressure, like standing beneath heavy surf. They move when they can, crawl when they must. At one point, they pass an abandoned German field kitchen. Pots still warm. Soup spilled into the dirt. No one stops. Near dawn, they encounter a scene that seals the moment forever in Von Broich's mind. An American supply column rolls past on a distant road, silhouetted against the lightening sky. Trucks bumper to bumper, headlights shielded, moving without pause. You can see crates stacked high, fuel drums lashed tight, mechanics riding on fenders, relaxed, alert. One truck hits a rut and a crate falls off the back, spilling its contents. The column does not stop. Another truck simply nudges the crate aside as it passes. Von Broich watches in silence. Keller whispers, "They don't even notice." "No," Von Broich replies. "They don't need to." The contrast is overwhelming. His own men scavenge for bread, ration ammunition, count fuel drops. The Americans shed excess without concern. At 5:20, American infantry appear through the hedgerow barely 30 meters ahead. Both sides freeze, startled. For a heartbeat, no one fires. Then instinct takes over. Shots crack. Men dive. A grenade explodes, spraying dirt and leaves. Von Broich throws himself behind a tree, feeling bark splinter under impact. The skirmish lasts less than 2 minutes. The Germans break contact and slip away, leaving 2 wounded behind who cannot move. Von Broich forces himself not to look back. As the sun finally crests the horizon, painting the battlefield in harsh, honest light, Von Broich understands the full meaning of what he saw in that ration crate. This is not just a tactical defeat. It is systemic. Structural. Unrecoverable. Germany is no longer being beaten by maneuvers or bravery. It is being outlasted. And this morning, in the low light of Normandy, that truth becomes impossible to ignore. Morning stretches into late morning under constant pressure. There is no clear front anymore, only movement away from sound. Von Broich's group shrinks as men peel off, wounded or separated, swallowed by the hedgerows. By 8 o'clock, the sun is fully up. Dew evaporates from leaves, carrying the sharp smell of crushed grass and cordite. American aircraft appear overhead in lazy arcs, unchallenged. You hear the steady drone long before you see them. "Air cover," Keller mutters. "All day." They move only when the planes pass, hugging shadows, counting seconds. Every open field feels like a trap. Every road, an invitation to be seen. At 9:30, they reach the edge of a small orchard. The ground slopes gently downward toward a stream. Von Broich studies it, weighing options. Crossing now risks exposure. Waiting risks encirclement. Before a decision is made, American artillery solves it for him. Shells crash into the far side of the orchard, cutting off the retreat path. Shrapnel winds through branches. Apples rain down, smashed and bruised. "Across!" Von Broich shouts. They sprint, boots slipping, lungs burning. A man stumbles and doesn't rise. No one stops. By midday, the pressure has become absolute. American infantry are no longer cautious. They advance openly, supported by tanks that pause only long enough to fire, then move again. German resistance flares and dies in minutes. Von Broich and Keller shelter briefly in a collapsed barn. The walls are blackened, the roof half gone. Sunlight cuts through smoke and pale shafts. Keller sits heavily, back against the wall. "Sir," he says, voice flat, "we can't keep this up." Von Broich does not answer immediately. He removes his gloves, flexes his fingers, and notices how badly they tremble. "We will try to reach the river," he says at last. "If we cross, there may be fragments holding." Keller nods, though either of them believes it fully. At 1340, as they approach another hedgerow, a burst of American fire erupts at close range. A German guard drops instantly. The rest scatter. Von Broich dives into a ditch, heart hammering. Mud fills his mouth. He hears shouted English, sharp and confident. A Sherman's engine roars nearby, so close he can feel the heat through the ground. This is the climax, not in spectacle, but in inevitability. The net has drawn tight. Movement options collapse one by one. A white cloth flutters briefly ahead, tied to a rifle barrel. Someone has chosen survival. Von Broich watches it, chest tight. For a moment, he considers it. Then another thought intrudes: the men who cannot run, cannot hide, cannot choose. He grips his pistol, then lets his hand fall away. "We break east," he orders. "Now." They move again, slipping through a gap the Americans haven't sealed yet. Fire cracks behind them. Bullets snap past. One man screams. They do not stop until their legs give out. By late afternoon, the sound of battle begins to fade, not because it has ended, but because they are no longer part of it. The Americans have surged past, driving deeper, leaving pockets to be mopped up later. Von Broich sits on the bank of a shallow stream, boots submerged, staring at the water. His reflection looks older than he remembers. This, he knows, is the climax of his command. Not a stand, not a victory, but an escape from annihilation. And it was decided the moment he opened that American ration crate and saw a future Germany could no longer match. The stream offers no protection, only a pause. Water slides around Von Broich's boots, carrying away flakes of dried mud and blood. For several minutes, no one speaks. The only sound is breathing and the distant rumble of battle moving farther east. By early evening, the truth settles in with brutal clarity. The American breakthrough has succeeded. The German line in this sector has not bent. It has dissolved. Keller returns from a short reconnaissance, moving carefully through the brush. "Sir," he says, voice low, "there are Americans on the high ground to the north and south. They've passed us." Von Broich nods. He had expected this. When pressure moves faster than retreat, being bypassed is inevitable. "What about friendly units?" he asks. Keller hesitates. "Small groups. No coordination. Most are moving independently." That is the end of it then. A division reduced to fragments. Command reduced to suggestion. They move again at dusk, following the stream bed where it curves through low ground. The air cools, and with it comes a strange calm. American fire is sporadic now, focused elsewhere. Their momentum has carried them beyond this pocket. They pass abandoned German positions. Machine guns still pointed forward. Ammunition stacked neatly beside them, unused. A body slumped over a map case, hands still gripping the strap. Von Broich stops briefly, removes his cap, then replaces it. There is no time for more. At 1930, they reach a crossroads marked on the map as a fallback rally point. It is empty. No flares. No signals. Just dust and tire tracks heading west, American tracks. A lone German sergeant emerges from the trees, rifle slung loosely. He salutes without enthusiasm. "No one's coming, Herr General," he says. "They were here hours ago." Von Broich studies the intersection, then the fading light beyond it. This had been the last chance to reform something recognizable. Now it is just another place passed through. He gathers the remaining men, fewer than 20 now. "We continue east in small groups," he says. "Avoid roads. Avoid contact. If captured, destroy documents." No one argues. Orders no longer need justification. As night falls again, the battlefield quiets behind them. Not silence, never that, but distance. The sound of American engines is now a background hum, steady and untroubled. Von Broich walks at the rear for a while, watching the silhouettes ahead. He thinks of reports that will be written, if they are written at all. Lines explaining withdrawals. Language chosen carefully to obscure collapse. But he also knows the truth cannot be hidden forever. Not when the enemy's advance is powered by a machine that replaces losses faster than they can be inflicted. Near midnight they pause in a small stand of trees. A man hands Von Broich a canteen. He drinks sparingly. Keller sits nearby, staring at the ground. "Sir," he says quietly, "what do we tell Corps?" Von Broich considers the question longer than necessary. Then he answers. "The truth," he says. "That we were outpaced. Outfed. Outproduced." Keller nods, though he knows how unwelcome that truth will be. As Von Broich settles against a tree, exhaustion finally overtakes him. His last clear thought before sleep is not of tactics or orders, but of that ration crate in the lane, the sealed tins, the cigarettes, the coffee. Proof, in metal and paper, that this battle's outcome had been decided long before the first shot was fired. Dawn comes quietly this time. There is no barrage to announce it, no sudden rush of engines or shouted orders. Just a gradual thinning of darkness, the trees around them taking shape again, leaf by leaf, branch by branch. Birds begin to call, uncertain at first, then louder, as if testing whether the world is safe again. Von Broich wakes with stiffness locked into every joint. For a moment, he does not know where he is. Then the smells return, damp earth, sweat, smoke, and memory settles back in place. Around him, the survivors stir. Fewer still than the night before. One man does not wake at all, his face slack, breath stops some time before dawn. No one remarks on it. A blanket is pulled over him, and they move on. They advance cautiously eastward in pairs, avoiding open ground. The landscape bears the immediate scars of the breakthrough. Abandoned vehicles line the edges of roads, German trucks burned out, their cargo scattered, mixed with the remains of equipment deliberately smashed to deny capture. They pass an artillery position overrun during the night. The guns are intact. Ammunition stacked neatly beside them. No bodies. The crews surrendered, or fled, or were taken somewhere unseen. At mid-morning, they reach a low ridge overlooking a village. American flags hang from 2 buildings already. Jeeps move freely through the streets. Infantry lounge in doorways, helmets off, rifles stacked. An American supply truck rolls in behind them and stops. Crates are unloaded casually. Men laugh. Someone lights a cigarette and offers one to another soldier, who waves it off, uninterested. Von Broich watches through binoculars for a long moment. No anger rises. No envy. Only a flat, exhausted acceptance. This is what the aftermath looks like on the ground. Not chaos. Organization. Keller lowers himself beside the general. "Sir," he says, "we should avoid the village." "Yes," Von Broich replies. "There's nothing for us there." They move on, skirting the ridge, keeping distance. Around noon, they encounter another group of Germans, stragglers from different units, mixed together, leaderless. Faces brighten briefly when they recognize Von Broich's rank. "Any orders, Herr General?" one asks. Von Broich looks at them. At their empty canteens. Their mismatched weapons. their eyes searching for direction. "Move east," he says gently. "Stay alive." That is all the command he has left to give. As the day wears on, the sounds of combat fade further behind them. The war has moved on without them, rolling east on a tide they can no longer influence. The front is no longer a line. It is a direction. Late in the afternoon, they stop near a hedgerow to rest. Keller produces a small item from his pocket and hands it to von Broich. An American ration tin. Unopened. "I picked it up back there," Keller says. "Thought, perhaps." Von Broich turns it slowly in his hands. The metal is dented but sealed. He weighs it once, then sets it carefully on the ground. "Give it to the men," he says. "I've already learned what it has to teach." They distribute the contents quietly. No ceremony. Just calories for bodies that still have to keep moving. As the sun sinks toward the horizon, von Broich stands and looks west one last time. Smoke marks where fighting still burns. Somewhere beyond that, American factories continue to run, ships continue to unload, crates continue to be sealed. The immediate aftermath is not defeat declared. It is something colder. It is understanding. Night returns without drama. There are no flares this time, no probing patrols brushing too close. The Americans are busy elsewhere, consolidating ground already taken. For von Broich and the few men still with him, the darkness offers a fragile anonymity. They move only a short distance before stopping beneath a line of trees. No one has the strength for more. Rifles are set down carefully. Helmets come off. A canteen is passed and then passed again, each man taking only a swallow. The forest hums softly with insects. Somewhere far off, artillery thuds, distant now, like a memory rather than a threat. Von Broich sits with his back against a trunk, knees drawn up slightly. His hands, finally at rest, no longer shake. Exhaustion has burned past fear and settled into something numb. A young soldier nearby breaks a piece of chocolate into smaller fragments, counting them out so everyone gets something. No one argues over the size. You taste it slowly. It is sweet. Artificial. Strange. A flavor from another world. Keller sits beside von Broich in silence for a long time before speaking. "Sir," he says quietly, "do you think Berlin understands?" Von Broich does not answer right away. He watches the darkness between the trees, the way it seems to press inward. "They will," he says at last. "When there is nothing left to misunderstand." No one speaks after that. One by one, the men lie down, boots still on, weapons within reach out of habit more than necessity. Sleep comes unevenly. Some drift off immediately. Others stare upward, eyes reflecting faint starlight. Von Broich remains awake longer than the rest. His thoughts circle back, again and again, to that morning in the sunken lane. To the moment his hand closed around a clean, sealed ration tin. It had not shouted. It had not threatened. It had simply existed. That was the revelation. Not that the Americans were braver, or smarter, or more determined, but that behind every rifleman, every tank, every aircraft overhead, there stood an engine of supply that did not falter, did not improvise, did not beg for time. An engine that planned years ahead and delivered on schedule. Germany, by contrast, was fighting the present with the remnants of the past. A breeze moves through the trees, carrying with it the faint smell of smoke and something else, coffee, maybe, drifting from an American camp somewhere beyond sight. Von Broich closes his eyes. When morning comes, he will continue east. There will be reports to make. Orders to receive. Perhaps captivity. Perhaps more retreat. But the war, as he understands it now, is already decided. Not by this battle. Not by this day. But by everything that made that ration crate possible.